Well, some of us are lucky to have been brought up in some of the nicest places that this country has to offer. And India really has a lot to give for some of us who can appreciate it and appreciate the wild spaces, the big sky country, and the wilderness areas. My Himalaya is a unique Himalaya, that's sort of the hidden Himalaya, which other people have not seen before. And I've grown up in the mountains, walked in them, trekked in them, climbed them, got up to some of the highest summits, looked for birds, animals, met people all over, be it the Eastern Himalaya, the Western Himalaya. And I just want to put all those experiences together into a television series, The Hidden Himalaya. I'd like to bring out some of my travels from the past and revisit those places again as part of this series. Landore is one of those old British Raj hill stations which fortunately has not changed at all from the early 19th century when it was established, and you still have the same 40 or 50 houses. No construction is allowed, so no physical changes have taken place in the homes and the hillside. Okay, roads have been built, you can drive up there now, which you couldn't do earlier, but the forests by and large remain untouched, quite the same as they were maybe 100 years back. I'd like to bring out some of those quaint stories from Landore about the Dudwalas, the milkmen who bring milk up to Landore. I don't think that tradition has changed in the last 200 years. You still have the milkmen of Kolti and Kimui and Kanda bringing up milk every morning. They leave their villages well before daybreak. We'll follow their routine as they get up at 3 in the morning and move up in moonlight several thousand feet vertical altitude. It's a very interesting journey up a very difficult mountain path. Very often they come across a pheasant or a leopard or a bear. So as the milkmen are just about reaching town, you have this brilliant sunrise which Landore gives one, something like 500 kilometers of unbroken panoramic Himalayan view. You get all the high peaks of the Western Himalaya visible from here. So we'll follow all that. Well, everybody's heard of Gangotri and Gomukh and the Ganga and the source of the Ganga at the glacier, but we're not going to go visit the source of the glacier. We've seen that before. We'll go off and climb a peak called Rudagera, which is a 19,400 foot high peak. It's very interesting to see the succession from Deodar cedar forest to birch, the Himalayan birch, which is known as Bhojpatra, on which all the old Indian manuscripts are made, written on that paper, the bark of the Bhojpatra. And as you move up higher into the dwarf rhododendron and juniper zone, and as you go even higher, even the dwarf rhododendron and juniper disappears, and you're left to simple alpine grasses and sedges and some flowering plants. In one of our episodes, we'll visit the village of Bada Bangal, which is one of the most inaccessible villages in the Himalaya. And we're going to helicopter there. We're going to go down this narrow gorge. It's about a 25-minute chopper journey. And you see some fantastic peaks as you get up there. You see some of the highest peaks in the Himalaya relatively close. The villagers will, of course, be totally surprised to see us because in the peak of winter, they're not used to seeing human activity of any kind outside their village life because the villages are totally cut off from the outside world. It's about minus 30 at most times in the winter over there. Spend 2 nights there, and with our local village friend Katku Ram, he's going to take us across to go see if this snow leopard, this female snow leopard that was living in a cliff and a cave above the village, if she's still managed to rear her 2 cubs. Last time I was there last winter, she had 2 cubs which she'd given birth to, and we want to see if those cubs are still there. Having grown up in Darjeeling, I'm excited about going back and revisiting some of those tea gardens where I once collected butterflies and did my birding in my early years. Tea gardens provide extensive areas of safe habitat for bird life, wildlife, butterflies, insects. They're like mini wildlife sanctuaries. We look at some of the bird life of the tea gardens, such as the jungle fowl and pheasants, and look for gurral, the wild mountain goat of the Himalaya. We'll go back and have a tea or a breakfast with one of the tea garden managers and see what life is like in the tea gardens, and spend some time, go for walks, see the factory, see how the tea industry is progressing. Things are not so good, but they're looking up, and we'll sort of put all that in perspective as we look for our birds and butterflies. We'll go close to Kanchenjunga into the state of Sikkim and walk up to Zongri. From Zongri one gets this most brilliant view of the Eastern Himalaya, Kanchenjunga, Pandim, Narsing, all the peaks around Kanchenjunga, and you have several varieties of rhododendron flowering at the same time. And these are not just trees and shrub rhododendron, the arboreal varieties, but these are the dwarf rhododendrons. The entire Western Himalaya has less than half a dozen species of rhododendron, whereas the Eastern Himalaya has over 100 species. So we'll look at some of those species at the peak of their blooming. Kanchenjunga by itself has been one of the hunting grounds for a number of insect collectors and butterfly collectors from around the world. A lot of people have been caught collecting insects and butterflies for export, which of course is completely illegal and banned in India. We'll meet the forest department and see what they're up to and see what they're doing to bring about a change to this smuggling operation and how they're going to reduce that, how they plan to go about doing that. The Holy Grail, the quail. The mountain quail, last seen in 1872 and now known only by virtue of 8 specimens, 6 of which exist at the Natural History Museum in London at their special collections in Tring. We're going to go back into the last known habitat of the mountain quail. I've been looking for it for well over 15 years now, and I still head back to the habitat every year, sometimes for weeks or months on end. We'll see some of the related species, the kalij, the cheer, the koklas, the chokor partridge, the hill partridge, the piora, its habitat, the grasslands of Banog and Bhadraj, and around Nainital, Kilberry forests, and Jharipani and Jabarkhet and Mussoorie. We'll go back and see why the bird might have been thought to have gone extinct and what we're doing to actually try and discover it, to try and rediscover it. How we're networking the villagers and the local shikaris, the local hunters, all in an effort to try and rediscover the mountain quail. Experiences that have been unique to my lifetime, places and stories which I have not read about anywhere, which I have not seen on international television prior to this. I'd like to bring all these stories together in the form of this series called The Hidden Himalaya.